Okay, well, we will go ahead and get started this morning. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker, Delta Mitchum. Delta joined Thomas Concrete in September 2014 as the Director of Human Resources. During her career, Delta has held similar roles with Emery's, Zepp, and Lafarge. In addition to 30 years of human resource experience, Delta's professional experience includes being a legal office supervisor for the Virginia Army National Guard for 8 years, following 4 years of active duty service in the United States Air Force. Delta holds a bachelor's degree in business management from Virginia Wesleyan College and a certificate in human resource management from Old Dominion University. She is certified as a senior professional in human resources through the Human Resources Certification Institute. Delta is the vice chair of NRMCA's Workforce Development Committee and also a member of GRMCA's Workforce Development Committee. Thank you, Delta, so much for being with us here today to present on such an important topic that affects us all. Delta, you have the floor.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you all for attending this. As Emily introduced me, you may have noticed there are no letters behind my name or anything to suggest that I'm an expert in this topic, but it is a topic that I'm passionate about. And knowing that increasing awareness is the first step towards taking any type of action, I created this presentation for the NRMCA, and we delivered it at Concrete Works. But Bill and Emily thought that it might be helpful to deliver it to you guys as well, so I'm happy to do so. It's titled Mental Health in the Construction Industry. I would like to start the presentation with a video that I found on YouTube that I think will really set the tone for what we're talking about today, and not only the importance of the topic, but how difficult it is to talk about, how oftentimes it's difficult to recognize, and then from there we'll share a bit more information. But this gentleman that I'm going to introduce has over 37 years of experience in the highway construction industry, among the most recent years leading a team of 470 plus employees as president of Ajax Paving Industries of Florida. Diverse background including field quality control and inspection, project manager, and vice president of asphalt plants and materials. So I want you to hear what he has to say.
Look at this beautiful venue we're in this evening. How did you arrive? I flew into a local airport. I traveled down a highway, came up the sidewalk into the building, opened the door, electricity, air conditioning, plumbing. Those all have one thing in common. They were built and constructed by men and women that work in harsh conditions, dangerous conditions. They work in the industry that I've been part of for 37 years, the construction industry. While enrolled at the University of South Florida in my doctoral program, I landed on researching the topic of suicide in the construction industry. I learned that workers in my industry are more than 4 times likely to die by suicide as compared to the general population. We lose 1,000 workers a year to job incidents. They may fall from height, they may get covered in a trench collapse, may get electrocuted, may get hit by a car driving through a work zone. We lose more than 5,500 workers a year to suicide, and those numbers are underreported. We lose 5 times as many workers to suicide as we do to work injuries. Daily, we'll lose 2 to 3 workers on the job. we'll lose 10 to 15 that will decide to take their lives. But it can be a rewarding industry. If I think back over my career, both personal and professional, there's been many highs and there have been many lows. In 1989, I learned that my brother was terminally ill. 2 months later, my father passed. 4 months later, my wife and I lost our twin sons. In 1993, on my niece's 5th birthday, that was my brother's daughter, that would be the day that my brother would pass. And we'd also just learned that my mother had an incurable form of cancer and she would soon be gone. Yet while all this is happening, my career professionally is growing, but I'm doing what men from my generation, men that work in my industry, are taught to do. I was macho, I was tough. I didn't share my emotions, I didn't share my feelings, I didn't talk to anyone about it. I didn't talk to anyone. I remember standing at my dad's funeral outside with friends and family and telling them that he was better off now that he was gone. He was no longer in pain, he was no longer suffering. My goodness, he had lived to be an old man. He was 59 years old. That's not how I really felt. I was torn up on the inside. He was my hero. I held on to those emotions and those feelings and never did talk to anyone about them. In 2007, after another great day at work where I advanced further along in my career, I was very successful. Personally, I felt like I was a failure. I came home from work and we sat and we had dinner. I don't recall if it was during dinner or after dinner, but at some point something snapped. I had this pain, this suffering inside, and I just wanted it to end. I just wanted some peace and tranquility in my life, calmness. I went outside, I got in my truck, and I was driving to the location where I was going to take my life that night. And I received a telephone call. The call turned me around. I did what I had done since 1989, 18 years later. I laughed, I joked, I said, I'm out for a ride, I'll be home in a few minutes. I returned home, I went in the house, prepared for bed, went to sleep, woke the next morning and went to work. Just another day, like nothing had ever happened. For 14 years, only 3 people knew of that night in 2007. My son and what would eventually become my ex-wife. And while going through and doing my research, I learned that some companies are starting to address mental health and talk about suicide. So I told 16 managers in our weekly meeting that at our next annual safety day, we were going to begin addressing mental health and suicide. We were already a great company with a caring culture, but we were going to even elevate our culture to a higher level. And for whatever reason that day, I can't tell you why, I hadn't planned it. Suddenly it just felt right to tell them about that night in 2007. I looked around the room and talked to them individually and looked each one in the eye as I was talking. There was no emotion. There was no communication. There was no conversation. There was just me talking. And when I wasn't speaking, you could have heard a feather hit the floor. I looked at 2 of the people in the room and explained to them that there were letters in my desk drawers for them. They were my goodbye letters to them. They were my letter thanking them for making me the success that I had become, and also explaining to them that my deciding to leave was no reflection upon anything that they had done or not done. I finished talking and I said, that's all I've got. They all got up, walked out of the room. I sat there motionless, physically and emotionally drained. So a few months later, we did what we said we would do. I stood in front of 400 employees and told them that we were going to begin addressing mental health and suicide. I told them I had been there. We were going to elevate our culture. We were going to transform our organization to an even higher level. Within hours of the meeting ending, I began to receive telephone calls, text messages, and emails from employees. One of the employees 6 months later came to me and he said, "You saved both my marriage and my career." Another employee wanted to tell me that she had lost several family members to suicide and she had once stopped her own mother from taking her life. And she had also thought about it on occasion. She said that if it could happen to someone like you, as successful as you are, I no longer have to live in shame. I no longer have to feel shameful of my family and what they've done. So we as leaders in this room, we as leaders in the construction industry, we as leaders in all industries, we have a chance going forward. We have a chance to say that we're going to discuss mental health in the workplace. We have to take the stigma away from, when we say mental health, people immediately want to jump to mental illness. Mental health is a healthy thing, just like physical health can be. If I injure my shoulder, maybe I need to go see someone to get a little therapy on it. I don't necessarily need surgery. Just like if I'm struggling mentally, maybe I just need someone to talk to. Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe it's just a friend. Mental illness doesn't always mean that I need to be medicated, put away. So that's what my father always told me when I was growing up. Don't tell people your struggles and your emotions and feelings because they'll put you in a mental institution. So I didn't. Some of those emotions and feelings I still hold on to this day and can't share with people. So the challenge is, let's begin discussing mental health in a positive aspect and take the negative tone away from it. I will leave you with this story. I was in West Palm Beach, Florida, at a peer group meeting with 7 other contractors from around the country. There were about 15 of us in the room. One of the gentlemen in the room wanted to talk about 2 employees he had lost the year before to suicide. The gentleman to my left leaned over in my ear, and he said, all the people that do this have chemical imbalances. They're wired wrong at birth. There's something wrong with them. They're not right. It hit me wrong. I said, time out. I'm going to run the meeting. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story that not even the owner of the company sitting at the end of the table, my boss, has heard before. I never shared this story with him because I didn't want to lose the next promotion. So I told them of my journey from 1989 to 1993 to 2007 to 2021. I explained to them the research I was doing. I told them that I had never been a drug addict. I have never been an alcoholic. I've never been medicated. In fact, at that point, I had never even talked to a therapist before. The whole time I'm having this conversation, I'm thinking to myself, well, when this meeting ends, we'll find out if I still have a job. Will I be let go because of sharing what I've said here? Because is he thinking that if you can't manage your own life, how can I trust you to manage a company with 400 people in it? So when I finished my talk, everyone clapped, and I immediately said, I'm not looking for your applause. I'm looking for you to acknowledge that when you leave today, you will go back to your companies and you'll make a change. I also learned that night at the dinner, 2 people in that room had lost their sister to suicide, and they didn't share that with anyone. I can tell that story now because after my talk, they went back to their companies and told them about their sisters, and they're changing their cultures. So the meeting ended. We all walked out of the room. I was walking down the hallway toward the lobby to the elevators. my boss beside me. And I said, well, here it comes. And it did come. He put his arm around me. He put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, I'm proud of you. That was powerful.
Okay, well, just some facts for you. Mental health and well-being, these are high priorities for organizations. For many, they always have been, always difficult to talk about. But I think COVID-19, the pandemic, really escalated awareness of just mental health challenges in general. We have an extensive focus on safety throughout our industry, right? We talk about hazards all the time, but we don't talk a lot, or we haven't historically, about workers' mental health. Things like anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, and others are as dangerous to worker safety as any of the more tangible job site threats. You may be surprised to learn that a survey conducted in 2020 revealed that 83% of construction workers had struggled with mental health issues. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, construction occupations have the highest rate of suicide, as well as the highest number of suicides across all occupational groups. And this is kind of how this started. Bill sent something out. You guys may have watched the clip that really shined a light on the high incident of suicide in our industry. And we've had some of our colleagues experience this personally within their companies. So talking about the numbers may be surprising. 53.2 suicides per 100,000 workers, 4 times greater than the national average, which is 17.3 per 100,000, and 5 times greater than all other construction fatalities combined. Suicide would easily top OSHA's list of fatal 4 hazards if it was included in those statistics. Research shows that up to 90% of people who die by suicide have a mental health condition. Depression is the most common, but also other conditions may impact suicide rates, such as alcohol misuse, anxiety, and trauma. This is just a little clip. This survey was taken in 2023. And at the time, and I think I've got to put my glasses up here, yeah, over 4,000 surveys, and 60% of those surveyed were struggling with anxiety, 76% with stress, and 56% with depression. So that's a snapshot. But I think, if anything, those numbers are probably escalated as we continue to struggle with some of the things that we just deal with in society and in our everyday lives. Some contributing factors for why things may look like they do in our specific industry. I don't have to tell you guys, male-dominated industry, and men do experience the highest suicide rates. Toughness and strength are valued, right? Mental health conditions or seeking help may be seen as a personal weakness. There's a stigma and a fear of consequences if you do, someone finds out that you have a mental health challenge, and if you seek help, it can feel shameful. People worry about being judged. And sometimes an individual with mental health challenges and experiencing some level of chronic pain, and that pain can certainly impact our mental health. In a lot of our geographies, maybe not so much here in the Southeast, but work can be seasonal or cyclical, and that can create financial strain. We have a lot of deadlines. We're very weather driven, very customer driven. A lot of scheduling issues in our industry. So that stress associated with that and deadlines. Not a lot of job control. Again, very customer driven. Long work hours. A lot of overtime, but that leads to fatigue. And then, separation from family, not being able to attend events, things like that can increase mental health challenges. And then what about the women in construction? So you're in the minority. So therefore, women may feel somewhat isolated in this industry, don't have as many people that they're comfortable talking with. They are subject to a gender stereotype that not only affects self-esteem, but also means that they can be subjected to verbal or sexual harassment, whether subtle or very unsubtle. Unequal remuneration, I don't know that that's as problematic in our industry, but some limit around prospects for career advancement. Women also have to deal oftentimes with linguistic challenges. And I think what we're talking about here, communication techniques, sometimes men talk differently. A lot of times there's a lot of sports talk, sports analogies, things like that, that may not be as inclusive of women. And sometimes that's not deliberate, but it is what it is. And there can be a lot of stress for a woman trying to balance work and home. That can be a struggle. And then also a lack of effective, well-fitted personal protective equipment for women, which not only can jeopardize their physical safety and comfort, but it creates some psychological stress. I know, I would encourage you all. One thing I've been encouraging at Thomas is if we're going to order, I don't know, shirts or things for an event, and we're doing unisex, add in some extra smalls, so that if you do have women in your workforce and maybe they're not quite large enough for a man's or a unisex small, they feel a little more included. And then, construction jobs are hard. And so some women may struggle just with the physical aspects of the job, and those can lead to mental health challenges. All right, so let's talk about some myths that are out there. Many of these you may have heard. And so what we're going to do is kind of bust these myths. So the first one, mental health problems are not that common. Fact is that mental health problems are very common. About 1 out of every 5 people will experience a mental health challenge each year. So I don't know how many of us are on this call, but I'm seeing 10, and I'm on page 1 of 2. So looks like there's 14. So that means 2 to 3 of us are probably experiencing a mental health challenge just based on these statistics. 1 of every 25 has a serious mental health disorder. These can include anxiety, major depression, bipolar disorder, and schizophrenia. Myth: children and teens don't have mental health problems. I don't know if this is so much a myth anymore. The fact is, research shows that 1 in 5 teenagers have or will have a mental illness. More than 4 in 10 students surveyed felt persistently sad or hopeless, and nearly a third experienced poor mental health. And 50% of adults who have a mental health issue, the first signs showed up before age 14. This is not a parenting issue. Children, it's a combination of a lot of things, including things that happen, in school, in the environment, amongst their peers, just different places. So certainly not always a parenting issue. People with mental health issues are violent or dangerous. This is a big myth. Anytime we see something on the news, it always points to, a person getting violent or getting dangerous, but those are snapshots. The fact is that a large majority of mentally ill people are not violent at all. According to Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, only about 3 to 5% of violent acts are committed by a person with symptoms of mental illness. In fact, people with mental illness are a lot more likely to be victims of violence versus being perpetrators of violence. Mental health problems are a sign of weakness. Again, the fact is that it has nothing to do with being strong or being weak. It's a medical disorder, and it needs treatment in the same way that an infection or high blood pressure or broken bone or any other physical ailment needs treatment. There are many factors that can be involved in mental health challenges, including, brain chemistry. Levels of different chemicals in our brains can affect how it works. Diseases or injuries, suffering from a long-term illness or an injury can affect a person's mental health. Life experiences. It includes going through a traumatic event or having a very stressful job or difficulties at home. And then family history. Having a parent with a mental health problem could increase a person's risk of having a mental health problem. Right. When someone develops a mental health challenge, they will have it for the rest of their lives. They will never recover. The fact is that mental health it doesn't stay the same. It comes, it goes. There are so many things that can impact a person's mental health. A lot of things influence how we feel. So this is definitely a myth. A good treatment plan can help a person get through a challenge and recover. If the challenge doesn't go away, there's other things that a person can seek, whether it's counseling, medication, but there is nothing to confirm that a mental health challenge won't improve. Myth that therapy is a waste of time. Some people may not be comfortable with therapy, but research has shown that it's very effective in treating mental illness. It's usually most effective when used in combination with medicine. Studies found that 70 to 90% of people reported an improvement in their symptoms when both were part of their treatment plan. And then there's nothing that we can do to help someone with a mental health problem. This is a myth, and this is one of the reasons that we're here. There are many things that we can do to help someone. It's letting someone know that you're there for them if they need you. Talk to them, find out what they're going through. Treating the person with respect, right? Expressing support in ways that they can understand. Not, people feel supported in different ways. So talking to them and recognizing, understanding what it is they need, and then offering what they need as a way of support, helping them to find mental health services, getting help for yourself if you need it, and not giving up on them. One of the things that one of the programs that I teach at Thomas Concrete is one called Mental Health First Aid. And one of the first things we do is I have everyone pull out their phone and I ask them to put our EAP number in their phones. So I would encourage you, if your company has an EAP and you don't have that telephone number in your phone, make a point to do that, because when someone needs help, in that moment, it's important to be able to pull your phone out and give them that number. If you have to go looking for it or tell them you'll get back to them, you can lose that opportunity. So just a little something there to encourage you to prepare yourself to step in and walk alongside someone who might need your assistance. Okay, another myth, you can't prevent mental illness. You can always prevent getting mental health problems, or you can't always prevent them, I'm sorry. But you can look at some risk factors and try to mitigate those. So minimizing exposure to trauma. If you or a loved one experience a traumatic event, getting help right away. And that's, things like being in a car accident or witnessing a crime or anything like that that might traumatize someone, making sure that um, it's not blown off, that they get help if they need help. Reducing stress. Okay, having a stressful job or a home life can contribute to mental health challenges. So doing what you can to reduce stress where you can. Putting yourself in positive situations, right? Avoiding negative people, surrounding yourself as much as you can by healthy people who have healthy outlooks can do a lot for our own mental health, and establishing healthy habits, whether it's eating healthy, getting lots of sleep, exercising, all of these just basic self-care things can go a long way to improving your own mental health. All right, so talk about now some ways that we can help as leaders. Um, and again, awareness is a big one, but what we're going to talk about here is leadership engagement, raising mental health awareness, creating and fostering a mentally healthy organizational culture, and enhancing access to services and support. So when we talk about leadership engagement, as leaders, just have a vision around this, implement policies and practices that communicate mental health as a strategic imperative for the company. Um, you know, prioritizing mental health initiatives to reverse the alarming trend of increasing mental health challenges and suicides within our industry is super important. And I know for those of us who are in areas like HR and safety, I think it's maybe easier to access as far as policies and things, but ideas are so important, behaviors are so important. So I think wherever we are, we can contribute as leaders. Be visible, exhibit leadership on the importance of addressing mental health as a sound business practice and as the right thing to do. Be vocal and be vulnerable. If you're struggling, sometimes sharing with others that you're struggling gives them the courage to share that they're struggling. So being vulnerable and being willing to talk about mental health challenges is a really good first step towards normalizing the conversation, if you will, so that people in your organizations feel comfortable um, talking about when they don't feel comfortable. To raise mental health awareness, we all have different things. I know we do Safety Awareness Month in June. There's generally Breast Cancer Awareness Month. A lot of companies get really involved in. There's also Mental Health Awareness Month. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's in May, but I need to fact check that. But any Google search will tell you when Mental Health Awareness Month is. So making a big deal of that, integrating, as it says here, resources, information, and policies on mental health into daily activities, um, sharing a lot of information. We talked uh, a couple slides ago about EAP information, making sure that you have it really handy so that you can pull it out immediately if you need to. And then consider training managers and first line supervisors to better understand mental health and substance misuse. There is a wonderful program. It's not a 2-hour thing. It's a full day program called Mental Health First Aid that, again, a Google search would make you aware of local instructors and things like that, just to just help your supervisors or managers feel more comfortable recognizing and stepping in. It doesn't make them experts. There's no diagnosing, no treating, but just being able to recognize some symptoms, step into the space with the person in case talking is a good first step for them, can go a long ways towards helping someone. Check with your EAP to understand, what they might offer in training and resources. Again, community organizations can be very helpful. A couple of them are listed here. I've already talked about the mental health first aid course that's put on or founded, if you will, by the National Council for Mental Well-Being. And then the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention also offers a lot in this space. Create a mentally healthy culture. Okay? Building a caring culture that promotes psychological safety by showing concern and empathy for workers. Now, psychological safety, that is a term that gets thrown around a lot. So I just wanted to, I looked up a definition that I wanted to share with you. Psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or mistakes, and that the team is safe for interpersonal risk taking. So when we talk about psychological safety, we're not talking about a person's mental well-being. We're talking about how they feel in this case in the workplace. And there are actually 4 stages: psychological safety, it's inclusion safety, so just being included, just what it says there. Then there's learner safety, where someone's comfortable asking questions. Contributor safety, where they're comfortable sharing ideas. And then it moves to challenger safety, where they're comfortable saying, hey, I don't agree with that. And that can be really difficult. So we talk about psychological safety. There's a great book on Amazon. It's like $12. It's called The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. So I would encourage you to check that out. Reinforcing a respectful workplace culture, one that's free from harassment, discrimination, bullying, or inappropriate teasing and harsh judgment of peers. And then fostering a culture of support where an employee feels safe speaking out if they are struggling, and making sure that not only is it okay to do that, but that it's encouraged to do that, because someone who's distracted may not be your safest employee, right? So it goes to not only taking care of that person and how they're feeling, but it goes to workplace safety, which goes to workplace productivity and earnings, right? So it all ties together.
I don't want to interrupt.
Mhm.
What'd you say the name of that book was? What was that book title
It's
again?
called The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, and it's by Dr. Tim Clark.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for asking. All right, again, just making sure employees are comfortable speaking up when they need to, and that it's encouraged. And then this final bullet: be aware of the risks associated with offering alcohol at company-sponsored events. Couple of things here. It's not just about someone abusing it, which that could happen, especially if they're trying to deal with high stress or burnout. But you may have individuals who are in recovery, and putting those individuals in a situation where there aren't any options other than alcohol can create some anxious feelings for them. So just being aware of that, being aware of the risks, also maybe considering having some alternatives to alcohol there for those who don't choose to drink alcohol, whether it's an alcohol-free beer or just, something other than water or a Coke, just so that they feel included and part of whatever it is that you're celebrating. All right, and then the fourth recommendation, enhance access to services and support. Know what's available in your company through the Employee Assistance Program. Know what's there before you actually need to use it or before you need to encourage someone you work with or who works for you to access it. Remove the barriers to care to improve access to medical and mental health care. Sponsor family health and wellness fairs that include information about mental health and substance misuse. And then again, know that there are some other resources out there for mental health services and support. And there will be a slide when this is distributed to you that lists many of those. So they're listed here. Just a moment. But again, these will be coming to you. And then I want to talk briefly about 988. I hope you're all aware of this number, but I know I wasn't when this material was first introduced to me. So 988 is similar to 911, except that it's a line that is dedicated to suicide and crisis. So if you are with someone and there is a circumstance where they have said to you that they are considering suicide, you can get them connected to a counselor by just putting in this number and handing them the phone. And I would encourage you to do so. Okay. So that number is 988. And then some action steps just here. If you feel like someone is having thoughts of suicide, number one says ask. Um, that is so hard to do. It's something that in mental health first aid, the participants actually practice. It is hard to look someone in the eye and say, are you thinking about committing suicide? And I can't believe I just said that. We're also trying to remove the word commit from the suicide language. That word is typically associated with, crimes, right? We commit crimes. People don't commit cancer. They don't commit heart attacks. So we're trying to stop saying commit suicide. And as you just saw, it's not easy to do. So are you thinking about taking your life? Are you thinking about taking your life by suicide? When we talk about suicide, if we encounter it, we talk about someone dying from suicide. So just something to think about, some work that's being done to change the language, but it is a difficult question to ask. But it's important that you ask it. And one of the other myths out there is that if you ask someone or if you bring it up, you'll put that thought in their head. You will not. That myth has been busted. If you ask that question, you will hopefully get that person to talk about it. And by talking about it, they may be able to work through it. And that's super important. So be brave and courageous and ask the question. Be there for the person, help keep them safe. So if they say yes, there are some follow-on questions. And if it appears that they may be planning something imminent, super important to help keep them safe. And that's where that 988 comes in, and even potentially calling for some help could be important. Help them connect and then follow up. And just a flyer here, more not so much for this presentation as to be included in the presentation for when you get it. about some warning signs of suicide. And a lot of this information, as I said, is available with a Google search. I didn't see anything as I was doing this research that talked about being proprietary or, most of the organizations that are doing this work want to get the word out. So if you have an opportunity and want to go and pull some things out and get some posters or anything like that, there's no shortage of things that are available. All right, and that concludes this presentation. Again, thank you all. I think awareness is the first step to action, and this is certainly a very actionable item for our industry, and one that, I hope all of you will feel compelled to do something with. So with that, I guess I'll open it up for questions, which I'm not an expert, so I may or may not be able to answer, but I'll do my best.
Delta, it's Bill Benzer. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Bill?
Good. And I'll be honest with you. I'm not able to see the presentation, but it certainly hasn't really affected my ability to hear you and get the message. This is so helpful, and I think very, very timely. And I missed the very, very opening. I could not even join the meeting at the very beginning, so I'm not sure how you were introduced in your opening remarks. But I was wondering, at the risk of you repeating yourself, what have you done? What has been your work thus far at Thomas with education and counsel and that sort of thing?
Sure. Thank you, Bill. Well, the work at Thomas, it actually started before COVID. I did some work around psychological safety, which we talked about a little bit a while ago, which that work is proprietary as far as delivering presentations and such. But what I did do was a book club with a couple of groups around the book itself, which was quite helpful. And from that and moving into the pandemic, I just became aware, not only just with how I was feeling, but in talking with, I'm fortunate that I lead a rock star team of HR professionals in Thomas Concrete, and we have a pretty open dialogue. So just spending time with them during that time and hearing how they were struggling, it really created a concern for me that coming out of that, mental health was going to be, or mental health challenges were going to be a big distractor in our workforce. And as we were talking about safety a lot, and I just really started talking about mental health a lot. And from that, did some research, found out about this program called Mental Health First Aid, attended the program myself as a participant, invited some of the leaders in Thomas to attend. They were very impressed with the program. As we looked about how to get it delivered to Thomas, just made the decision that what would make the most sense for Thomas was if I got certified myself. So I went through their instructor certification program and have started delivering that to, the goal is to deliver it to all of our salaried employees, and then to deliver it as more of a service to other parts of the workforce and potentially family members who might be interested. But we're certainly, the priority is our employee population, specifically those who supervise others. So to date, I've trained 29. well, actually closer to 50, because also my team has been trained. And the feedback has been really positive because it's not only something that's helpful to them in the workforce, it can be helpful to them with their own struggles, but also with family members and friends. So there's really a lot of good reasons for doing it. But that's what I've been doing. And then things like this. We did this at the NRMCA at Concrete Works, and I was grateful when you and Emily suggested that we do it here.
Well, we really do appreciate you putting this together. And I'm going to give a little testimony. Personally, that's what a testimony is. But 2 years ago, when we were in 23, we were about to have our first driver skills competition in the spring. And that particular spring, or in 23, I was really battling with atrial fibrillation, which it's a very common irregular heartbeat. I've had it for probably close to 10 years. It'll drive you crazy. It'll certainly give you anxiety because your heart just takes off. And it's not, in my case, there's no distinct trigger for the AFib. Some people, if they drink alcohol or caffeine or get into a situation, then it'll trigger the atrial fibrillation, and then you get into a vicious cycle. I don't have that. Mine comes when I'm happy. It comes when I'm unhappy. It can come at any time. But the long and short of it is this, and this is the point of my bringing this up, is that at the when we were doing the driver skills, I was really battling it. It was like every day, and it was really creating a difficult time for me. And two of your folks, Ron Lee and Whit Brown. Ron was actually the chairman of the association at that time, but Ron and Whit were there, and I just remember, and it just stuck in my mind that they detected my anxiety, and they both were, what I remember was, how can I help? How can I help?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for a leader, someone that detects someone that's clearly, in a struggle, to simply ask, how can I help you? It's so powerful, so simple. And honestly, at that moment, I don't even remember what my answer was, but the question certainly helped me when I was wrestling with that. And I'm happy to report this year it's been very mild, and it hasn't been bothering me a lot. But I think that I've noticed both Whit and Ron, I'm around them, Ron more than Whit, but I've listened to them. Not that I'm an eavesdropper, but they'll be on the phone fielding calls with operations or sales. But I've often heard them use that question, at the end of an exchange or in the middle of the exchange. Hey, how can I help you? And I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. I think it's a powerful question. I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill. And interestingly enough, Ron and Whit were the two leaders that accompanied me to evaluate the mental health first aid training for our workforce. And both were, very impressed with that training, and both have been very strong supporters of getting it out into the workforce. They actually both put it on their goals for 2024, which is one of the reasons I had to go get certified. I am not going to be responsible for you guys not meeting your goals. Any other questions or? And Emily, it's my understanding this will be, I guess, the recording of the webinar and the slide deck will be provided.
Correct. So I'm going to put everything on YouTube and also to send out to all of the attendees today. And the YouTube video that did not work, I will embed that into the YouTube video that I post up onto YouTube. So if
Wonderful.
anyone wants to go back and rewatch this or share this with any of your employees, you're more than welcome to do so. Thank you so much, Delta, for being here today.
Thank you.
Well-
And thanks everybody for attending.